Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The question may be fairly simple, but there are rather a lot of different campaigns trying to bend our ears. On the side of those who want us out of the EU, there's the Vote Leave campaign, headed by Dominic Cummings and Matthew Elliott, who ran the successful No to AV campaign. They're also linked to Business for Britain, which has the support of a number of leading business figures, and to the groups Labour Leave and Conservatives for Britain. But that's not all. Also campaigning for Brexit is Leave.eu, which has links to UKIP and is funded by the UKIP donor Aaron Banks. They're vying with the Vote Leave campaign to be the officially recognised organisation. And to top it all, there's now Go, a new grassroots group made up of MPs including Kate Hoey and David Davis, which is designed to coordinate campaigning on the ground. On the other side, the main group is the Britain Stronger in Europe, headed by the former Marks & Spencer's boss, Sir Stuart Rose. Then there's Business for New Europe, led by businessman Roland Rudd, Labour Yes, led by Alan Johnson, and now there's a new group set up by the Tory MP Nick Herbert, called Conservatives for Reform in Europe. Even though some of their members are Eurosceptics, they say they'll support David Cameron's renegotiation and will vote to remain inside the EU if he's successful. Expect a few leaflets through your door in the next couple of months. And with us now, UKIP leader Nigel Farage. Welcome back to the programme. Now, when even staunch Tory Eurosceptics like Nick Herbert are planning to campaign to stay in, don't you worry now that the tide of opinion is moving away from you and towards Mr Cameron?
I've never regarded Nick Herbert as a staunch Eurosceptic. He briefly in the 1990s worked for an organisation that campaigned to keep the pound. He was paid to do it.
You didn't think he believed it?
I don't know. Lawyers take on briefs whether they believe in the case or not.
What about Michael Gove? It looks like you've lost him.
Since he's been, when he was a minister and since, he's never once advocated Britain should leave the EU. So, he's doing a job bolstering the Prime Minister. Look, there's been lots of speculation about, will Boris Johnson back the Out campaign? Will Theresa May back the Out campaign? I don't know. What I suspect is...
Not Michael Gove, we know now, I think.
Well, I suspect that most senior politicians inside the Conservative Party will put their careers before their conscience and will back the Prime Minister's position. But does that matter? That's the real question. And I'm beginning to see this referendum actually as being the people versus the politicians. It might not matter.
Except your own side continues to be driven by factionalism. We've got Vote Leave, we've got Leave.eu, and they seem to spend more time attacking each other than what you might regard as the common enemy.
Well, you've got these two groups who are vying for the nomination. The Electoral Commission will decide. One or the other will become the official umbrella group. I've been trying to support both of the organisations, though I have to say, when I listened to Dominic Cummings on Friday...
Who's on Vote Leave, I think.
He was Vote Leave, and indeed Daniel Hannan, who you interviewed on Friday, on the midweek version of this, and suddenly they're talking about a two-referendum strategy, which I don't like the look of one little
Why
bit.
not? Why? Because the argument is, if we vote... The argument from Dan Hannan on the Daily Politics was, we can vote to come out, and then Europe will panic and make us an offer which will effectively be associate membership, and we could vote on that.
Well, we effectively have associate membership now. We have ever since the euro was created. And I think, Dan Hannan has criticised every government that has lost a referendum and made people vote
But
again.
he wants to leave, doesn't he?
I wasn't sure. After the interview I saw the other day, I genuinely wasn't sure.
We've now got a group of prominent, mainly Tory, but not entirely politicians. They've started a third group called Go. As you know, it does lend itself now to jokes about the Judean people's struggle and the struggle for the
point about Go. The point about Go is that it's there to break the deadlock that you've identified earlier in this interview. And next Saturday, there will be Conservatives, Labour, UKIP and DUP sharing a public platform. There's a big auditorium, there's 2,000 people coming, and we're going to start the ground campaign in earnest.
Should Vote Leave and Leave.eu amalgamate?
Of course. I've argued this right from the start. Leave.eu have got 400,000 registered supporters. They're brilliant at mass marketing. Vote Leave are a Westminster-based group of people who've got some fantastic links with the business community, some great academic backup. They would, in fact, be complementary, not contradictory.
And meanwhile, as you're still struggling to get a united front, if I can put it like that, perhaps the united front of the Judean people's struggle.
Well, no, Go is breaking that. Go is breaking all of that down.
Your massive forces, as you will see, are being mustered. And I would suggest from the Better Together Project Fear playbook, which proved so effective in the Scottish referendum, shouldn't you fear Project Fear?
Well, Project Fear worked in Scotland, and clearly, Alex Salmond's complete over-reliance on oil as the source of Scotland's income and his inability to answer the question about, whether they'd have the pound or the euro was the problem. We haven't got that problem. And actually, even Project Fear's got a problem, because I was up against the Welsh First Minister last Monday in a big public debate. He said all the big businesses would leave Britain, but increasingly, all the foreign-owned car companies are saying, no. If Britain leaves the European Union, we will maintain our manufacturing bases.
But the problem that you have is that although even if we stay in, there'll be some uncertainty as the Eurozone becomes more united, and we're unlikely to be part of that. It'll be different. So you can't be sure of the future. No one on your side can tell us if we come out, what will our status be? What will our relationship be? Because you have lots of differences.
Well, we've got a whole range of options. There are countries all over the world that have different relationships. The Swiss have bilateral relationships.
No, I know.
The Norwegians have membership.
Which one should we have?
The Norwegians have a membership of the European Economic Area.
Sure.
We are the biggest trading partner the Eurozone has in the world. We are trading at a vast trade deficit. What we want is a British deal which is based on trade, cooperation, and nothing more.
But don't you have to spell that out more as to what exactly that would be? And of course, there's still the uncertainty as to whether you could deliver.
Well, every single German car manufacturer, every single champagne producer will absolutely insist that we do that deal as quickly as we possibly can. Now, actually...
You hope that, but of course it's uncertain.
Under the terms of our treaties, of course, on D-Day +1, nothing changes at all. We will have open access to markets during the time we renegotiate a British deal.
Do you not feel, though, the ground beginning just to move a little under you, that as the whole forces of the British state, I'm sure Alex Salmond felt the same in the Scottish referendum, muster, that it's a formidable force and you're up against it?
I think in terms of our political class, yes. I think the chances of many people who are currently in senior positions in politics joining us, perhaps they diminish inevitably, but what you can't do is take away from ordinary folk out there scenes such as Cologne and saying to themselves, in 3 years' time, all these people will have EU passports and will be able to come to Britain. This campaign will be the people against the politicians, and the more the politicians club together, perhaps the more the people will choose to vote against them.
But in any possible relationship with the EU out will almost certainly involve a huge element of continued free movement. These people may well still be able to come to this country under any deal that you're able to arrange.
What I want us to get...
your side.
Well, we have free trade deals all over the world that don't involve the free movement of people. It's only in Europe that we have this fallacy, this pretense that we need to have free movement of people. And I think,
it may be the price of any kind of relationship.
I want us to govern our own country, and that includes controlling our own borders. And I want us to have an Australian-style point system where we're able to vet and adjudge whether people will make a positive contribution to our society. I can't do that as a member of the EU.
A final question. It's a personal one, but you've not had the best of times, I would suggest, since the election. And it culminated in what it seemed to be you designating a car breakdown as an assassination.
I didn't do anything like that, but Sunday newspapers are very good at that sort of thing.
Well, you did seem to think it was some kind of assassination attempt. I mean, hasn't that undermined, as the most famous person on the Get Out campaign, doesn't that undermine your credibility? I
don't think it does, no. And to say we've had a tough time since the election, it's very interesting. UKIP is being written off by every commentator in Fleet Street. The last YouGov poll of the year had us on 17% of the opinion polls, 25% up since the general election, and amazingly, on the most important issue, the number one issue in the minds of British people, immigration and border controls, we're the most trusted party on 29%. And we go into this year with a realistic expectation of winning seats in Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and playing a big role in this referendum.
We shall see. Thank you for being with us, Nigel Farage. Let's now go straight and talk to the former Conservative Chancellor, Ken Clarke. He's in our Nottingham studio. Mr. Clarke, are you now in any doubt that the Prime Minister is going to be the enthusiastic leader of the campaign to remain in the European Union?
I think he will, because all the news, although it isn't really news, a lot of it is rumour from people who don't really know, is he's going to come back with a pretty reasonable deal. And he's already got the things he was first talking about pretty well in the bag, I think. When he first announced he was going to have a referendum and seek some reforms, he's added one or two more. Nobody really knows what the final deal will be, but I think they're very close to getting one. And the debate's getting more serious, and I think David will certainly advocate staying in.
Okay.
Or, he will put it, I mean, with some justice, a reformed European Union.
All right, well, given that this was the entirely predictable outcome, is this whole referendum process promoted by Mr. Cameron worth the candle?
Well, we shall see. I mean, all politicians
You can
of
see
my
now,
generation...
is it or not?
Well, I wait for the outcome. I think that will determine what the referendum's effect will be on British politics, the British economy, and so on thereafter. I mean, all politicians of my generation did not think referendums were a good way of running a modern, sophisticated country. But
You wish he hadn't done it, don't you?
Well, I don't think anybody thinks I was ever in favour of calling a referendum. My views weren't quite as strong as Margaret Thatcher's, who denounced referendums in stronger terms than I ever have. But they're a bit of a gamble. And I don't think the Scottish one has resolved the Scottish independence issue. I hope the union will be confirmed, but it's still somewhat at risk
Well, let
until
me
things
come
have
on
calmed
to
down.
Scotland, because it seems quite clear that the In campaign is going to draw quite heavily on the Better Together Project Fear playbook. Why doesn't, well, we've been briefed on fear of Russian aggression. One cabinet minister said to me, who'll be happy with this referendum if we vote to leave? President Putin is the one that will be happy. Who's actually going to put the positive case for Britain inside Europe?
I shall try to put the positive case. I hope
Who
Nick
else?
Herbert will put the positive case. I hope Damien Green will put the positive case. The reason we're in the European Union is because we think it strengthens our voice in the modern world, and because we think it's in the medium, longer term good for our economy, and we think actually this is the right place in what is a complicated, sometimes frightening, world that now is where nations are interdependent on each other. That we will be a modern and successful state, more modern, more successful if we're in. Of course, the campaign exaggerates things. I mean, Nigel Farage is a parody of a right-wing nationalist, but there are even the serious ones, I think. On both sides, people are inclined to say there will be calamity if we stay in, or there'll be calamity if we leave. There will be a huge uncertainty if we leave. I personally strongly believe that my children, my grandchildren, will discover that we're really losing political influence in the modern world, and we're not as prosperous as we otherwise would be.
We know you want to stay in, so I want to ask you some questions about that. If we do vote to remain, should our membership of the euro at some stage come back onto the agenda?
Well, I don't think it will in my lifetime. The British have, I think, firmly politically decided not to join the euro. The euro it's got to be reformed. I mean, the eurozone still has not sorted out its crisis.
Should it come back onto the British agenda or not, in your view?
I'm not going to start forecasting the future at a time we're fighting this referendum. I was asking for an opinion, not a forecast.
I
do believe that a single, if you have a single market, this isn't a trade deal, it's a single market, usually you have a single means of exchange. But they made a mess of the euro. They didn't run it properly. So I wouldn't join it at the moment. There's a lot more reform.
You don't rule it out?
Whether one day the next generation of politicians will find that we do want to have the same currency, I can't tell.
And do you worry? I mean, you're very pro-European. You know its failings. You can be critical of it. But do you worry now that the future, even if we vote to stay in, the future of the EU will very much be what takes place inside the Eurozone, and that we'll be on the periphery, increasingly a kind of country club member? Doesn't that worry you?
It worried me when we started. Now you're talking with great respect, Andrew, about one of the most serious issues that there really was an issue that needed to be addressed. There are others. We're almost there, I think. What we did not want is that the decision of the British and the one or two others, I think now, will never join for the foreseeable future, not to join the single currency was going to make us second-class citizens, and that the Eurozone group should not start deciding things that adversely affected us. We were negotiating that before this referendum came up. I think George is nearly there. My understanding is, but I'm not directly involved, I've been to Brussels a bit, I think that's the most important point. It won't feature in this campaign. And the single market's underway again, and deregulation's underway again. And they are really important things, that reforms which even a firm pro-European like me always wanted.
Mr. Clarke, we've run out of time, but we thank you for the short interview this morning. We'll come back to you as this debate and the referendum progresses.